what was the impetus behind this?
I've been studying the Olympics and the Olympic movement my entire life. I'm 39 years old. When I was a undergraduate at university, it was just after the Sydney Olympics, and it was always something that inspired me. And I thought to myself, I learned some key statistics. 44% of Olympians admit to using banned performance-enhancing drugs within the last year, according to research commissioned by the World Anti-Doping.
44%.
44%.
And the other, probably lying.
Are losing. Yeah, exactly. And so, and then I learned that the average American Olympian only earns $30,000 a year. And I thought to myself, there's something really wrong in the system. And instead of, trying to reform it, let's take a blank slate of paper and invent the third Olympiad from scratch.
Well, the Olympics is kind of a scam because it generates billions of dollars in revenue, and the people that are there to perform make almost none of that.
That's correct. Actually, the International Olympic Committee doesn't pay any of the athletes. Incidentally, they may get some money in sponsorship or from their National Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the billions of dollars in revenue come into the Olympics, and none of that goes to the athletes. It gets wasted building stadiums. It gets wasted paying officials. And we thought there's a way to do a better, more honest model that inspires us to believe in the future of science and technology in the 21st century.
And you could do it apolitically too, if you chose to. Are you guys doing it by nation, or are you doing it just like human beings?
Human beings.
Better.
I think the era of nationalism is over. Right. Look at the Eurovision Song Competition recently.
What is that?
Oh, it was when Israel was performing, and there were huge protests out front of the competition.
But long story short, unfortunately, this was the first year where it became really political, which I think music shouldn't be. Yeah,
right.
And which was sad.
Yeah.
But we will not be political. That's the short version. We're not going to go per country. Yeah, it's the best human being, the fastest one, highest jump or whatever.
Yeah, it's just so many countries use it as a political tool, and they cheat. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen Icarus, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was with Brian Fogel a couple of days ago.
He's great, and that documentary is amazing. And what incredible circumstances, like the way it all played out, where he's in the middle of doing this documentary about doing a race naturally and then doing a race enhanced, and the guy he contacts in the middle of all the Sochi Olympics crap, that guy winds up fleeing the country, spilling the beans, and now he's hiding.
He's in witness protection, yeah.
Yeah, still in this country, hiding from Russian killers.
Yeah, and that's right. And I think, the reality is that performance enhancements are everywhere. 6.3% of men in the Western world have used anabolic steroids at some point in their life. 75% of men who regularly go to the gym are interested in using steroids. And so instead of doing it underground, in secret, let's do it out in the open with clinical supervision.
Before the manufacturing process,
and
only using ingredients that meet their strict requirements and come from trusted suppliers here in their state-of-the-art in-house lab.
We were talking about this in the pod. We were talking about the different drug schedules on the podcast yesterday, and steroids are scheduled, right? It's like Schedule 3.
It's a Schedule 3 substance in the United States. There are 23 countries where steroids, anabolics are legal, including in the United Kingdom for personal use. And so let's first distinguish between what is legal and what is banned. So in Olympic competition, they always say, oh, these drugs are illegal, but actually they're banned in Olympic competition. So
because there's a lot of things that are, like peptides and things along those lines that are illegal in the Olympics.
That are banned in the Olympics, but they're not. They're not scheduled.
It's really important because that means the Olympics decided as a sort of private organization, we don't want that, but you can take it.
Right.
Yeah.
So legally you can take it.
So like TRT, for example, is a perfectly legal substance. It's FDA approved. It's delivered under clinical supervision. But if you used it, you would be banned from Olympic competition. Right. So the vast majority of compounds that are banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency are actually perfectly legal.
The UFC had a guy that accidentally took something that had DHEA in it. Mm-hmm. A real high-level guy, Khalil Roundtree. And he was supposed to be fighting Jamal Hill in 3 weeks. And he found out that there was DHEA in it. He informed the UFC, told them. And DHEA isn't even performance enhancing. and they banned him for 2 months. So he got a 2 months. And so he missed out on like the biggest opportunity of his career.
So if you go into your local GNC, 25% of the goods will contain substances that are banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency.
25%.
Yeah, so these are just off the shelf.
Right.
This is not black market. This is what you can buy in your local shop.
And then, of course, there's tainted supplements, which is a real problem because a lot of these supplements, they use another party that puts them together for them, generally in other countries, and a lot of them in China. And these people are also making different things with these vats. They don't clean them properly, and then they mix the new stuff in it, and you easily get contamination. It happens all the time.
Exactly. And, well, that's the excuse that the Chinese government used about the 23 swimmers. Are you aware of this situation?
What's this?
So 23 Chinese swimmers tested positive TMZ, which is a heart medication, and they claimed that this was because of a...
When was this? How long ago?
Just 6 weeks ago. It was.
Oh, really?
It came out 6 weeks ago.
Oh.
The incident was earlier.
Yeah, so 2021. But yeah, the New York Times reported it.
Received no sanctions. 13 of the athletes went on the year's Olympic Games in Tokyo, won 6 medals, 3 of them gold. Huh. Well, they definitely did something during Beijing, too.
Yeah, well, the Chinese clearly were doing this intentionally, and the World Anti-Doping Authority, because of pressure from the Chinese state, covered it all up. And that's not my accusation. That's the accusation made by Travis Tygart, who's the CEO of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency.
Okay, so the premise is, let's cut the shit.
Yeah.
You guys are... There's been people that do... It's like the argument for Tour de France, right? Like Tour de France, when they stripped Lance Armstrong, the next person that had not ever tested positive was 18th place.
Yeah. And if you look at the 100-meter time, it's the fastest man in the world, 7 of the top 10 fastest 100-meter runners in history have had a doping violation. And the only one that's not in the top 5 is Usain Bolt.
Wow. So it's just a scam.
It's a scam, yeah.
And we've been hearing that for years about sprinters, particularly sprinters in other countries, that they're enhanced. And especially if your national pride is involved and they know that there's ways that you can kind of finagle things and get around them, and you hire doctors to test people and use masking agents or whatever the hell you do. In the UFC, they don't even let them rehydrate with IVs anymore.
Yeah, same thing in cycling. So if you take more than 100 milliliters of IV within 12 hours, that's considered a banned substance.
Well, you can't do any IVs in the UFC.
Really?
Yeah, they won't let you because of the fear of masking performance-enhancing drugs, because you could flush your system. But the problem with that is IVs are good for you. This is really stupid. If you can make sure that a person is just doing IV vitamins, I mean, if your random testing is effective, you should just do that. Don't stop someone from doing something that's going to make them healthier while they're in a business that's about as dangerous as you can get without people shooting at you.
Yeah, and so the solution is not to do drug testing, it's to do health testing. We want to make sure that our athletes are healthy and safe to compete. So we do cardiac screenings, MRIs, blood work to measure their biomarkers to ensure that they're within healthy ranges. And that's the core difference, right? The drug testing apparatus at the Olympics is about fairness in competition. It's not about the health and safety of athletes.
Here's the question. If you open up the gates and say you're allowed to take whatever substances you want at whatever levels you want in order to compete at your very best, how close to redlining does a person get? Especially if you're involved in something that requires strength and explosive energy. We've had one of the things, the UFC at one point in time had testosterone use exemptions, and you were allowed to get those if your testosterone was at a low enough level. The problem with that was that was not thought out at all.
You can beat that test in a heartbeat. Just stay up all night.
Stay up all night, eat 15 cheeseburgers, and jerk off 3 times, and you're good. You're gonna be at 200. Oh my God, you're sick, Bob. But also there's another problem is that people that have a history of anabolic steroid use, generally they've wrecked their endocrine system. And particularly back in the day, the early days of MMA was all enhanced. And if you go and watch Pride, for instance, like Pride, which was the big show in Japan. It was this enormous organization in Japan that kind of fell apart because the Yakuza was involved with it and they went bankrupt. There's a lot of craziness involved. But at one point in time, they were selling out like these 90,000 seat arenas in Tokyo. It was nuts. And everybody looked like a superhero. I mean, just fucking just giant jack guys beating the shit out of each other. And everybody who went over there will tell you, like, the contract literally specifically stated in capital letters, we do not test for steroids. They will encourage you to do steroids over there. They want you to look good. They want you to fight at your best. They're like, we don't care what you take. Just go over there and go ham.
But it comes down to a fundamental philosophical question. Shouldn't an individual with free and informed consent, an adult, be able to make choices about their own body?
They should. But the question is, when is it not fair, right?
It's the epitome of fairness if it's very transparent.
Right.
What is unfair, think about it like you winning silver in the current Olympics. And I talk to so many athletes, they kind of know who is cheating or not. Because if you are very into sports, you know what is kind of, let's call it unnatural or enhanced.
Right.
So, but they cannot say it. There is a lot of politics, as you say, whatever. So you win silver, you stand next to the person who won gold, and you have a deep hunch that this person is enhanced.
Right.
That is the worst, because you're betrayed of your performance, because the people on the screen cannot contextualize it.
Right.
What we are saying is by the way, we're also not anti-Olympics. We're like, the Olympics should be really clean. Then it's interesting, because then I have a framework I can judge performance. But in our case, people will know that people take enhancements. We actually will endorse people to even say what they're doing, because it's completely open. And then again, you can contextualize. So both is about either zero or completely free slate in the medical framework is the real definition of fairness.
And from 1896 until 1992, the Olympics banned professional athletes from competing. And so the Olympics were amateur, and there were professional sports leagues elsewhere. And I think the same thing is going to happen in the 21st century. The Olympics are going to be the natural sports competition, where we're going to see what the best of a human 1.0 can do. And at the enhanced games, there will be what can the best unleashed human, superhuman, can do.
But here's the question. If you guys are successful, what athlete would want, if you guys are successful and it becomes a huge household name and people watch it and it becomes exciting, and you make money, what athletes are going to want to do the Olympics for free and get a microscope up your ass and people constantly testing you for this and that and knowing that other countries are probably pulling off some shenanigans like China allegedly did?
Yeah. Not our problem, but I agree with you. By the way, the same question is.
It's a good answer. Not our problem.
Not our problem. But I don't want to not wish them well. It's just I think we're gonna do better. And the other thing is, by the way, what I deeply believe, humans are wired. We want the best, and we want to also watch the best.
Yes.
You're not gonna watch something where the best natural player. No, you want to see the best absolute player, even if this player or person is enhanced. But again, the future will tell and the consumer will tell, but we are super...
But it's like the rise of the UFC. So the UFC was unbridled by the traditional rules of boxing and other combat sports. And, the simple premise that Rogan Gracie had was, how do we find the very best fighter, right? And that's just a very simple question. And at the enhanced games is, how can we find the fastest human being? Or what is the total potentiality of the human spirit and all of humanity?
So how do you get? There's a lot of factors, right? You need people that have already competed. You don't want to get someone who's just starting out at a sport, right? So you have people that have a deep history in the sport where they want to, and they're capable of competing at an elite level. And then if they're going to do your games, they have to kind of make this decision, because they're never going to be able in the Olympics again after that, right?
Well, they actually could go back to the Olympic system.
But they would get so tested.
Thank you for tuning in. If this journey resonated with you, I'd be honored if you clicked like, subscribe to the channel, and rang the notification bell to stay updated on future content. Your support is invaluable to me. Stay curious.